Winning a major is supposed to make a golfer immortal, but for some players, the trophy did not protect their reputation. From broken rules and broken clubs to LIV Golf drama, prison time, and cheating allegations that never went away, these are the 8 most hated major champions in golf history. And first, we start with number 8. Number 8, John Daly. John Daly is probably the strangest name on this list because for a lot of golf fans, he is not exactly hated. He is judged, laughed at, criticized for his choices, and somehow still cheered everywhere he goes. But that is also why he belongs here. Daly's career has always lived in that weird space where he's either looked at as a legend or a warning sign. In 1991, he arrived at the PGA Championship as the 9th alternate, with no one expecting him to do well, and somehow he won that major. Overnight, golf had a new folk hero. He was loud, he was volatile, he was nothing like the clean, polished players the sport was used to. Then in 1995, he won the Open Championship at St Andrews, and suddenly, this chaotic player had 2 major trophies attached to him. But with Daly, the story never stayed clean for long. The drinking, the gambling, the suspensions, the divorces, the public meltdowns, it all became part of the package. He once admitted to losing tens of millions through gambling. He had incidents where the PGA Tour disciplined him. He had moments where fans were left asking, how long can this keep going? And yet, somehow, people never fully turned on him. Because Daly was never pretending to be perfect. That was the difference. Fans saw the damage, but they also saw honesty. He was chaotic, but not fake. Flawed, but not polished into some corporate image. So Daly starts this list because his reputation has been messy for decades. But he is not the most hated, because even when golf fans criticize him, many still root for him. And that is very different from our next player, who went from being one of golf's most annoying villains to one of its strangest redemption stories. Number 7, Bryson DeChambeau. For a while, Bryson DeChambeau felt like he had been created in a lab to irritate traditional golf fans. The single-length irons, the dramatic calculations, the bulk-up experiment, the slow play, the idea that golf was not a feel game, but a math problem waiting to be solved. And to be fair, Bryson was fascinating, but he was also very easy to dislike. When he won the 2020 US Open at Winged Foot, by overpowering a course that was supposed to punish everyone, it felt like a turning point. Some fans saw genius. Others saw a player trying to break what golf is about instead of playing it. Then came the Brooks Koepka feud, where Bryson became a meme as much as a major champion. Every stare, every eye roll, every crowd chanting Brooksy made him look more like the awkward villain of the PGA Tour. And then LIV happened. That move pushed Bryson even further away from mainstream golf fans. He was no longer just the quirky scientist. He was now part of golf's most divisive breakaway league. But here is where Bryson's story gets interesting. Because unlike some players on this list, he actually found a way back. Through YouTube, he started showing a completely different side of himself. He was still obsessive, still strange, still intense, but now he seemed more self-aware, more relaxed, and more fun. Fans saw him joking around, experimenting, and interacting with creators in a way most tour pros never did. And then, the 2024 US Open at Pinehurst sealed the deal. That bunker shot on the 72nd hole did more for his image than any press conference ever could. Suddenly, the guy fans loved to mock was signing autographs and celebrating with crowds. Bryson is here because he was once hated, but he is the rare player who actually climbed out of that hole. Our next major champion never quite managed that, because every time fans began to soften on him, his temper reminded them why they were annoyed in the first place. Number 6, Sergio Garcia. For years, Sergio was the emotional genius, the brilliant ball striker, the Ryder Cup firebrand, the guy who played with his heart completely exposed. The problem was, sometimes that heart could turn into bad temper. Sergio's career has been filled with visible frustration, club slams, complaints, and outbursts where his talent was obvious. But his maturity was the question. In 2013, during the peak of his tension with Tiger Woods, Sergio made the infamous fried chicken remark, a comment that was widely condemned and that Tiger called wrong and hurtful. Sergio apologized, but that moment stuck because it crossed a line. Then, in 2017, Sergio finally won the Masters. And for a moment, it felt like the story had changed. The emotional player had become the fulfilled champion. But Sergio's temper never fully disappeared. In 2019, he was disqualified from the Saudi International for intentionally damaging greens. That is not just a bad look. In golf, damaging the course crosses into something fans take personally, because respect for the course is part of the sport's code. That is why Sergio is at number 6. He is not hated by everyone. In Europe, especially around the Ryder Cup, he still has plenty of admirers, but his tantrums have always made people question him. Number 5. Vijay Singh. Vijay Singh was never the loud villain. His image was intense, private, and almost intimidating. He hit balls for hours. He trained obsessively. He became world number 1. He won 3 majors. He built one of the most successful careers of his era through sheer repetition and discipline. But respect and affection are not the same thing. And Vijay's reputation always had a shadow over it. The biggest controversy goes all the way back to the 1980s, when he was accused of altering a scorecard during an Asian Tour event. Singh has denied wrongdoing, but the allegation followed him for decades. And in golf, that kind of accusation never really leaves. Then there was his comment about Annika Sorenstam playing at Colonial in 2003. When Annika accepted an exemption to compete against the men, it was a historic moment. But Vijay said she did not belong there, and that he hoped she missed the cut. Years later, the deer antler spray controversy brought his name back into another rules-related storm. What makes Vijay interesting is that he was never universally hated. Some fans admired his work ethic, some respected the fact that he came from Fiji and fought his way to the very top of world golf. But because the controversies never stopped following him, he was never embraced the way other champions were. With Vijay, the feeling was distant and suspicious. Number 4. Greg Norman. For a long time, Greg Norman was not hated. He was the shark. The blonde hair, the aggressive style, the global charisma. Norman was one of golf's most recognizable figures. He had also lived through some of the sport's most painful collapses. The 1996 Masters, where he lost a 6-shot lead to Nick Faldo, for example. But decades later, Norman's reputation changed completely, because Greg Norman became the face of LIV Golf. As LIV's public frontman, Norman was no longer just a former champion with unfinished business. He became the symbol of golf's civil war. To some people, he was helping modernize a stale sport. To others, he was helping tear apart the game for Saudi money. And Norman did not help himself. His public comments were often combative. He clashed with the PGA Tour. He became a target for players who stayed loyal. Rory McIlroy said Norman needed to exit stage left before any real compromise could happen. Tiger Woods also made it clear that players who joined LIV had turned their backs on the system that helped them get there. Then there were Norman's comments around Saudi Arabia and human rights, including the widely criticized "we've all made mistakes" remark when discussing the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. That line became a real disaster for his reputation. That is why Norman is number 4 on this list. And speaking of LIV, our next player's fall was even more shocking, because before everything changed, he was one of the most beloved golfers ever. Number 3, Phil Mickelson. Phil Mickelson's fall hit differently because fans had loved him for so long. For decades, Phil was lefty. The smile, the thumbs up, the risky flop shots, and the wild recoveries, the endless autographs. He was the people's champion, the guy who made golf feel spontaneous. Even his flaws were part of the charm. The gambling stories, the aggressive decisions, the occasional strange comments. For years, fans folded those things into the larger Phil mythology. Then the LIV comments came out, and suddenly, everything changed. Phil's comments to Alan Shipnuck were devastating because they made him sound calculating and careless at the same time. He criticized the PGA Tour's greed, acknowledged serious concerns around Saudi Arabia, and still framed LIV as leverage to reshape the PGA Tour. For many fans, that was the moment the mask slipped. This was not just Phil being outspoken. It made people re-examine the entire persona. Was he really the warm fan favorite? Or had he always been more self-interested than people wanted to admit? Phil apologized and called his remarks reckless. He stepped away from golf for a while. Even sponsors distanced themselves. And when he returned, the warmth around him was different. Still, Phil's controversy happened mostly inside the messy politics of golf. Our next major champion's fall went somewhere much darker. Number 2. Angel Cabrera. Angel Cabrera's story is the most serious one on this list. Cabrera won the 2007 US Open. Then he won the 2009 Masters. At his peak, he was one of Argentina's greatest sporting figures, a powerful, gritty player who seemed almost impossible to intimidate. But his legacy is now inseparable from what happened away from the course. In 2021, Cabrera was convicted in Argentina for assaulting, threatening, and harassing a former partner. He was sentenced to prison, and further legal trouble followed. He faced multiple criminal charges, including threats against other former partners as well. He ended up serving more than 30 months before being released on parole. That changed everything. There is no cheeky villain energy here, no bad boy of golf framing. Cabrera's story is a reminder that sometimes a champion's public legacy can be overtaken completely by what they did outside the ropes. He still has the major trophies, but trophies do not erase this kind of damage. So why is he not number 1? Because when we talk about the most hated major champions in golf culture, the number 1 spot goes to the player whose name became almost impossible to separate from one word: cheating. Number 1, Patrick Reed. Patrick Reed is not the most hated major champion because of one single incident. He is number 1 because every controversy fed into the same story. Reed won the 2018 Masters with incredible nerve. He held off some of the biggest names in the sport and left with a green jacket. But even that win did not fully soften his image. Because by then, Reed already carried baggage. There were college allegations involving cheating and stealing, which Reed has denied. But the stories followed him into his professional career and shaped how people interpreted everything that came later. Then came the 2019 Hero World Challenge. Reed was penalized 2 strokes after moving sand behind his ball during practice swings in a waste area. He said it was not intentional, but the video looked terrible. And in the court of public opinion, the explanation did not matter nearly as much as the footage. Then in 2021, at the Farmers Insurance Open, Reed took embedded ball relief after picking up his ball before a rules official even arrived. The ruling was eventually allowed under the procedure described, but again, the optics were brutal. And then it happened again in Dubai in 2023, when his ball got stuck in a palm tree. Reed said he had identified it using binoculars, but replays created enough doubt for another rules controversy to explode. That is the Patrick Reed problem. Every new incident feels connected to the last one, because fans were not judging the incident in isolation. They were judging it through every previous story they had ever heard about him. Reed has also fought back hard against criticism, including filing defamation lawsuits, but that only made the hate stronger. That is how reputations work. Once people distrust you, everything looks suspicious. And that is why Patrick Reed is number one. In golf, players call penalties on themselves. The entire sport depends on trust. So when fans decide they do not trust you, nothing is worse than that.